I will start with a brief overview of the procedural background of this evaluation. On 8th of July of this year, 2022, the Commission sent you a request for submission of the 5-year declaration of assets and personal interests. On 15 July, you submitted your 5-year declaration. The Commission also asked candidates to voluntarily complete and submit an ethics questionnaire, and you did so on the 5th of July of this year. The Commission sent you 2 rounds of questions on 17 August and 21 November respectively. You were asked a total number of 33 questions, including 107 subparts, and 59 of those questions included a request for further documentation. According to Article 3, Paragraph 4 of the Evaluation Rules of the Commission, a candidate may not provide information, documents, or other materials during the hearing if the Commission requested these earlier and the candidate did not provide them within the time specified, unless the candidate provides sufficient justification, of course. Members of the Commission will now start with asking you questions. I myself will start with asking questions, followed by my colleague, Mrs. Tatiana Raducanu. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point, and we ask that your answers be short and to the point as well. I will start with a number of questions relating to the issue of various real estate and the funding of the real estate over a number of years. In the years 2007 to 2021, you and your wife have been involved in the purchase of 5 different real estate, both in Chisinau and in Cahul, and both for residential purposes and commercial purposes. The Commission has a number of questions to you about these real estate properties and the way they have been funded. The first apartment was purchased on 28 December 2007 and was an apartment of 42.5 square meters in Chisinau in what is called White Walls Stage. The apartment was bought for 32,475 euros, which is roughly 540,000 lei, and was paid in 2 installments. A first installment of 28,872 euros in 2007, and a second installment of 3,600 euros in 2011. This property was put into operation on 30 October 2012 and registered as joint property of you and your wife. As of 11 August 2020, the apartment was rented out. For the period 2020 to 2021, the rent of this property was about 2,000 lei, so that is about 100 euros per month, and in 2022 it was 3,600 lei per month, so around 180 euros. At that time, in 2007, you had no income at all, and your wife registered a net income of less than 5,000 lei, around 260 euros. You informed the Commission that the apartment was paid for mostly from money of your parents. You did not provide any documents confirming the payment for the apartment or the source of funds of your parents to finance this property. You also declared that this apartment was put into rent after improvement works had been done for a number of years. I will begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts. Hopefully, these can be answered largely by a simple yes or no response. I will then also continue with asking you some questions that will seek greater detail or explanations from you. My first question is the following. This apartment of 42.5 square meters in Chisinau was purchased on 28 December 2007. Is that correct?
Да, este corect.
It is correct.
The price of the apartment was 32,475 euros. So that is in lei 538,135 lei. Is that correct?
Correct. The price was established in euros, indeed.
In 2007, you had no income at all, and your wife had a net income of less than 5,000 lei. Is that correct?
It is correct, but I would like to give a little clarification to that. During that period of time, both me and my wife were students, and we were financed by my parents, and my wife was more active, and even while a student, she got a job and was working.
And the next question is, the apartment was paid for by your parents. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. That my parents paid for it.
And you did not provide any documentation relating to the way your parents paid for this apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. I would like to make a clarification in this respect. When I applied to take part in that contest, my father was already deceased, my mother was alive, and when I received a question, my mother has cancer, I couldn't go with her to the tax authority or to the banks to ask for documentation. She was just at home and only going to her doctors for procedures, not anywhere else. But you know that I sent you the death certificate. She died this September, and that's why I didn't have any documentation to provide for this answer.
The apartment was what is called in white wall stage and needed more work to be finalized. Is that correct?
Yes, it's true. It is a new building where everything has to be done, like all the internal works.
The apartment was put into operation in October 2012, so that is nearly 5 years later. Is that correct?
Yes. So it was built, I don't remember exactly, but probably it was around 2012 it was put into exploitation. I don't remember exactly the date.
Yeah. And does that mean that by then, so we're talking about October 2012, all additional work on the apartment had been finalized at that time?
Da, deci
Yes.
apartamentul a fost
The
reparat în
apartment was repaired in 2011,
și am stat un pic în acest
and
apartament.
I even lived some time in that apartment before I became a judge, because I was appointed judge in October 2011. By that time, it already had furniture and repairs. Everything was done by then, because one of the conditions to put a building into operation was for the apartments, a certain number of apartments had to be at a certain extent of completion of internal repairs, and we complied with the requirements of a construction company.
Yeah. So basically all additional work at that time had been finalized at the end of October.
Da, până în anul 2011.
Yes, until 2011 October. I don't remember the month exactly, but until October I started to live there.
And how much money was involved in the additional work to finish the apartment from white wall stage to being fully habitable, so to say?
So it wasn't white walls, it was high quality construction. It didn't require a lot of investment because the walls were just painted. They were not processed with anything else, only paint on the walls, and then laminated flooring and tiles in certain in the bathroom, let's say. But I don't remember how much it cost. It's more than 11 years since then, so we don't have any documentation to provide.
But in rough terms, are we talking about a few thousand lei or 100,000 lei, or what are we talking about?
It's not a few thousand lei, certainly, maybe a few tens of thousands of lei, but I can't say, and certainly it wasn't 100,000 lei. No, not that much.
Okay. And who paid for these additional repairs and completion works?
Tot părinții mei m-au ajutat.
My parents helped also.
Okay. And so what happened with the apartments since it was finalized in 2012? So you first lived there yourself for a while, but what happened over the years until it was officially rented out in 2020?
Adică cine a locuit acolo?
Meaning who lived there?
Sau,
Yeah, or
da?
was it rented out, or
Adică,
what happened?
dacă a trăit cineva acolo, era dat în chirie, sau bine, ce s-a întâmplat cu el între timp?
Deci, apartamentul nu era dat
The
inițial în
apartment
chirie.
initially was not leased out. I was appointed a judge in Cahul Court, but I am from Chișinău municipality. I went here from kindergarten until graduating from the National Institute of Justice. I studied, I lived only in Chișinău municipality. And when I was appointed to be a judge at Cahul Court, that was a foreign town for me, strange town. I didn't have any friends or acquaintances, relatives. I went there only to work. And of course, at that time, I had only one purpose, one wish, to come back closer to my relatives, to my friends, to my colleagues. And initially, I was often coming for the weekends, and I was living for well, I was coming and living in that apartment. So I wanted to also to ensure that the repairs and the furniture is well preserved. That's why for a longer time it was not leased out.
Okay. So it was for the first time
Bine,
actually
adică
rented
prima
out as
dată
of
l-ați dat în
2020,
chirie
not
în
before that.
2020, nu mai devreme de atât.
Nu ți minte exact.
I don't remember exactly what was the year, but yes, it was closer to the current times, current events. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but certainly not from the very beginning, because I lived in that apartment. I had my personal belongings there.
Good. Then let's move on to the second apartment. The second apartment was purchased on 6 June 2010 and was an apartment of 40.2 square meters, also in Chișinău and also in Whitewall Stage. The apartment was put in the name of your daughter, who at that time was about 1 year old and was legally represented by your wife. The purchase price of that apartment was 25,560 euros, so it's around 420,000 lei, and was paid for in 10 installments in the period from 2010 to 2014. Since 2022, this apartment is rented out for a monthly fee of 3,000 lei, so again around 150 euros. You informed the Commission that the property was purchased with funds that you and your family earned and with funds from your parents. You stated that it was a decision of your parents to buy an apartment for their first granddaughter. In the same period, 2010-2014, you and your wife registered a total net income of 250,610 lei, so much less than the purchase price of the apartment, and of which most of that was earned in 2013 and 2014. In 2010, your father received a transfer of 88,000 US dollars, so that is over 1.1 million lei, from a company called Bramco Business Cooperation, which is based in Panama. In that same year, your father had officially a net income of 405,000 lei. You did not provide any documents confirming the source of funds of your parents to purchase this apartment and did not explain the source of funds for the bank transfer from Panama. Here again, I will begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts, and then we will go on with some questions that will seek greater detail or explanations from you. So the first question is, this apartment of 40.2 square meters in Chișinău was purchased on 6 June 2010. Is that correct?
Da, este corect.
Correct.
Ați menționat despre
You
faptul că
mentioned
a fost achiziționat pentru prima
that it
nepoată,
was
cred că
purchased for the
ne-
first granddaughter by my parents.
țin să menționez că
I'd like to
la fel
mention
încă
that,
nu activam în acea
again, I
perioadă.
was not working yet, I was not employed.
Fost o dorință de-a
It was
părinților,
my
inițiată
parents'
acea companie de
desire because
construcție,
that construction company
este aceeași companie care
is
a
the
să cumpărat și
same
primul apartament. Au
company from which we
informații că
purchased the first
dacă
apartment. They
se
had sort of
înregistrat contract
promo
copilul,
that
copil
if
minor,
you register a contract
deci,
on a
se
minor,
făcea o reducere
you could get a discount of
5%
around 5% of the price of the apartment. Also, during that time, there was another special promo that if you already have an investment contract with that company or already purchased apartment from that company, you were getting a 10 euros per square meter discount. So that was a special offer. Mold Expo, my parents found out about it, and they thought that it would be good to purchase this apartment.
Thank you.
Bine, vă mulțumim.
And the price of the apartment
Prețul
was, as I
apartamentului a
said,
fost, de cum am spus eu,
25,560 euros. That's
25.560 de
correct.
euro, corect?
Da, este corect.
Yes,
și
it's
dacă
correct.
facem o analiză,
And if we
apartament este un pic mai
compare it to the first one, it was a bit cheaper because that was the special promo offer.
Yeah, thank you. In the years 2010-2014, you and your wife had a total income of around 250,000 lei. That's correct?
de lei, corect?
Eu nu pot să spun cu
I
exactitate,
cannot say
nu
precisely.
am socotit,
I did not
dar,
calculate,
dacă comisia a luat
but
toate datele
since the
care le-am
Commission
prezentat,
received all the data that I submitted, I'm sure that should be the correct amount.
Okay, thank you. And as we discussed, the apartment was largely paid for by your parents. In the round 2 questions, in question 3, you quote them by saying they decided to invest in real estate. So it was actually entirely paid for by your parents?
Nu chiar pe deplin.
It wasn't entirely paid by them. Some amounts were paid by us. I cannot say precisely, but some part was paid by us, some part by the parents, but I cannot say precisely because there were several installments, and again, that happened almost 10 years ago, so it's hard to remember, but mostly that amount was paid by my parents, who started to invest because it didn't make sense to buy an apartment for which we don't have money to pay for. So my parents took this commitment to pay for it.
When we say mostly, are we then talking about 80-90% or over 50%? So what is roughly the, I can imagine you don't know the exact figures, but what was roughly your contribution and what was their contribution to the total price?
I'm sure it was over 80-90%. It was my parents' contribution. I cannot say precisely.
Okay. And it is correct that you did not provide any documentation relating to the way your parents paid for this apartment, huh?
Da, și e aceeași explicație ca și la primul.
The same explanation as for the first apartment. Death of my parents, my mother's disease obstructed me from being able to provide documentation.
Okay. So this apartment was in white wall stage, so the same questions as with the first apartment. You did undertake some additional works, and who paid for those works?
Yes, this was an apartment in a new building. I would like to explain the situation. It's a bit more difficult than in the first apartment. So in the first apartment, the construction schedule was followed, but in case of the second apartment, the construction schedule was not followed. And you can see in the first case, you see the date of putting it in exploitation. Then the second apartment is in a building that is not yet put into operation officially. And this is because the company got insolvent. They could not fulfill the commitments that they took, and currently the bankruptcy proceedings are ongoing. And moreover, from the media, I found out that the management of this company has criminal proceedings against it. It's in Chișinău court. With respect to this apartment, because of being over-indebted, the company set our apartments as collateral, and there are grievances from the it is encumbered in a way towards the bank. So for several years we have electricity, there is water, gas, and so on. But all this uncertainty with criminal cases, bankruptcy, collateral to the bank, led us to only one solution, that we shouldn't do repair works because we don't know what will happen to this real estate, and we don't know if all rules were obeyed, and generally it is unknown if this building will be put into operation generally. So for a long time, since we had the need, and since our child was a minor, even now, our child is 13, does not need a separate living space, for a long time we didn't do any repairs there. We did not invest in it. But over time, as a result of events happening, we saw that there is no final solution yet, and the insolvency administrator organized several meetings and explained us that most likely the goods that the real estate that the company owns, that are not property of, meaning like our apartment, it should not be transferred to other parties. If this is administered efficiently, most likely in several years the company will be able to get out of this procedure and pay out all debts towards the bank, and paying out the debts will lead to lifting the encumbrance over the real estate, which will lead for this property to be finally put into operation. That's why we did not do any repairs for a long time in this apartment. We lately, in the last period, we started to do repairs because we saw many people doing that. Not all apartments are set as collateral with the bank, but many people did it, including people whose apartments are set as collateral with banks, and they live there. And we decided that it would be the case for us also to lease this apartment, as we did with the first apartment, in order to somehow get back our investment. So we did not hurry with the repairs. The repairs took place for a longer time. So first we finished some work, the walls were painted. Gradually furniture was purchased, and at some point we leased it.
So the apartment is finalized and is rented out, I understand.
Da, la moment este.
Right now, yes, it is.
Okay. The official net income of your father in 2010 was around 405,000 lei, is that correct?
I cannot confirm, but if the Commission had access to information from the State Tax Service, I confirm that. I just want to say that I did not have access to that information. I don't know how much, I did not check, but I know that I made a request in September for the Commission to ask for it, and since you checked that and that's the amount, I'm convinced that it is the right one.
Your father also, as the Commission found out, received $88,000 US from Panama in the very same year, 2010. Is that correct?
I found out about this amount only in round 2 of questions. Personally, I did not know about this fact. If the Commission had access to such information from official sources, I don't deny it, but I can't confirm it either, that such a transfer happened. Now, round 2 was in October. My mother was deceased. I mean, I could have, if she was alive, I could have at least asked her verbally, what can you tell me about that amount? But it wasn't possible anymore. I asked my siblings. None of them could tell me about it. I just want to say that I actually submitted a request to the Commission. I asked for an extension of the deadline for the answers because my parents over the last time lived in an apartment and a house. I went there personally and I searched for some documents. It's easier, you know, it's a bigger amount in US dollars, and I searched where I knew that they were holding some of their documents, but I couldn't find any confirmation for this. So, well, if the Commission found out this from official sources that this transfer happened, I do confirm it.
Information, well, what is the source of the fund, or what is the activity of this company in Panama? You have no further information about that.
I don't have information, neither verbally nor in the writing. But, well, analyzing things, the only supposition that I can have, I don't state that this is true or false, but this is what I presume. That my father, being a lawyer, well known in Chișinău, maybe he consulted a group, maybe he had some activities from a company from here and a company from there. Maybe they wanted to invest in Moldova, maybe it was a foreign investor. Maybe my father consulted them, helped them, so this is my only supposition. Because my father has never been to Panama, and he couldn't have some assets in there.
And given the fact, if we looked at the calculations, $88,000 US is over 1.1 million LA. Given the fact that the net income, the taxable net income of your father was just over 405,000 lei, can we safely assume that your father did not declare this money with the tax authorities here in Moldova?
It means yes. But then the question comes why he did not report. I don't know the source, but maybe he did not report because the taxes were not paid from the amount. So I'm not sure. I don't know what to say. Maybe he didn't know that he has to declare that. I cannot answer to this question. But if the state tax authority did not present, it means he did not report it.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add to this question in relation to this apartment?
I don't know. Maybe the other members of the Commission have questions. I have a question about this transfer. We all know that Panama is an offshore country where there is a high risk of money laundering. And you said that you had very good relations with your parents. They bought you a few apartments, first, second, third apartment. So then, if we speak about this big amount of money, $88,000, from where this money came, you didn't have a discussion in the family, taking into account that you were a united family? Yes, we were a united family, but my parents did not communicate anything to me about this money. I found out in 2022 about this transfer, and I didn't know about it before. I have a question. So the data, the information of the purchase of the two flats, 2007, 2010, they are very close to each other. And according to the data that we have, the parents at that time did not have a big income. And these are purchases that are discussed in normal families. So did you have any discussions about the source of money? Because from a person, from a side that looks at this purchase, there is a legitimate question arising about this purchase. Two flats at a distance of 3 years, It's not something that you can just purchase as a gift. Maybe you can have some additional explanation from where this money was, because you were at the institute at that time, from what I understand. Yes. Okay, so the money for the first flat, they were gathered during many years. So these were savings of my parents. And the second flat was procured in installments. So it had to be paid off during a lot of years to follow. And the rates were not so high, the installments were not so high. And the second flat, as I told you, it was cheaper. So the first flat was more expensive, and parents actually had available the money that they put aside. They had savings. And the second one was kind of to be paid in the future in installments for many years. I understand that it's a short period of time between these two purchases, but this was the decision of my parents, and I can only say that this was their decision to make this investment.
We move on to the third apartment. Now we move to the 29th of November 2016, where your wife purchased an apartment of 74.8 square meters in Cahul, also here in Whitewall Stage. The apartment was bought for €35,904, which was paid for in 4 installments in the period 2016 and 2017. This property was put into operation on 21st of August 2018. The improvement works done in this property were financed by your own sources, as you indicated and informed the Commission. You did not provide any confirmative documents about the expenditures incurred by you for those works. The apartment was bought for personal use, as you're now living there. On 15th of October 2019, you and your wife have officially registered your residency visa in this apartment. You informed the Commission that 4 different financial sources were used for the purchase of this apartment. First, yours and your wife's income. Second, your family's cash savings. Third, a money gift from a family event amounting to €30,000, so roughly 660,000 lei. And fourth, a 100,000 lei donation by your parents. In your annual declaration for 2016, you disclosed also cash savings in the amount of €21,000 and asked for clarification by the Commission. You explained that the amount of €21,000 forms an integral part of the €30,000 obtained from this family event. You did not provide any supporting documents in relation to the family event gift of €30,000 or the 100,000 lei donation received from your parents. Although the taxable income of your parents since 2010 varied, and in 2014 and 2015 was as low as 68,000 lei and 45,000 lei, in 2016 your parents' taxable income amounted suddenly to over 1 million lei. It's the same year of the donation and the family gift. Here again, I will begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts, and then we will go on with questions that may seek greater detail or explanations from you. So the first question is, the apartment of 74.8 square meters in Cahul was purchased on 29 November 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct, according to the agreement that we have.
And the price of the apartment was €35,904. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
And the apartment was only put in the name of your wife. Is that correct?
So I don't know what do you mean registered here. So the investment contract was signed by my wife. It's a typical contract. It's a non-negotiable one. The construction company established the clauses and my wife signed. So but we have purchased it according to the legislation. All the goods that are bought by one of the husbands are common property. We are married. So, but the fact that the contract is signed only by the one person, it doesn't mean that this doesn't belong to both husband and wife. But yes, she put the signature there.
Okay. But why is it that the signatures of you and your wife are on the contract? Why is it only her name on that contract?
It's sufficient to have one signature in that contract, one of the husbands. So we didn't discuss that we have to have two signatures. It's a contract with one signature between a buyer and a seller. So it's important for the seller to have a signature there, one signature.
Okay. And the apartment, as we discussed, was paid for by a couple of different sources, so your own and your wife's income, the 30,000 euros gift in relation to the family event, and the donation by your parents of 100,000 lei. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Yeah. And you did not provide any documentation relating to this family event. Is that correct?
Yes, I didn't, because in 2016 we already, after 6 years, I didn't keep any documents to give further explanation. So you want me to talk more about the event? Okay, so indeed, the flat was bought in 2016. My second child was born, and we made a celebration. So in the Republic of Moldova, we make this big celebration when we baptize the child. It's a big religious event, and it's a holiday for the family, and all the relatives are invited. A lot of friends were invited, close people, acquaintances, and all of the people in Moldova, they bring a present. And it's not about writing a declaration or bank transfer. It's something that they bring. And in 2016, we had this celebration, this big holiday. We organized it. So we are, all our friends, all our relatives are in Chișinău, and we decided to make this party in Chișinău. We were with a newborn, and we were involved a lot in work, in our work. And my parents actually were available to deal with organizing the party, and they paid for the organization of this party. We never thought about collecting any justification documents for that. And during and after this party, my parents, they saw that a bigger amount of money was collected, and they have suggested to us, because we already had 5 years of living in Cahul, and they suggested that we can move into our own place in Cahul. And my wife received the license for a judge, and she was working in for a judicial bailiff, and she worked in at 40 kilometers in Cantemir region. I was working in Cahul region, and we had the first child that was in the educational system already. And the parents gave us just an idea that it would be a right time to buy our own property where we can live together. And this happened in September. And from September till November, we searched for this accommodation, for this flat. Cahul is not as developed from the real estate point of view, and it's not so easy to find a good real estate. And we identified the construction, building that was in construction, and we agreed that we can pay the first installment from the saved money, and the rest of the money, my parents suggested that they can keep the money and use it later. And you mentioned 21,000 euro. Indeed, we have declared at the National Integrity Authority about this money that is kept by my parents. Because, of course, the next year the question would arise, how did we pay the installments? And that's why we agreed to declare that money, and the money was physically kept by my father. We agreed with my father about that. And when I included this money in the declaration, of course, the integrity officer has the right to check how we manage that money, because it was not put in a bank. It was physical. So they just physically took the money, my parents. And in this context, we had to be aware that we must show the money to an officer at any point. And of course, immediately after the events, it was quite easy to verify that. But because we didn't place this money in a bank, in a financial institution, it is difficult to provide documents. Maybe it was a bad idea to keep them at home, because now I would have had a declaration from the bank at least.
Can I safely assume that the family event that was organized by your parents here in Chisinau, that out of that 30,000 euros, that the biggest part was a donation from your parents? Is that a correct assumption?
I cannot exactly give you an answer now to that, but I think more than half of that amount was from gifts from relatives, because we also had relatives from abroad that work in Russia and other countries, from Ukraine. People came, our relatives from Italy, so they gave a lot of money. So more than half of that was definitely from our relatives. Proportionally, I would say it's like that, but I cannot tell you exactly.
Okay, thank you. Then also this apartment was, as we discussed, in white wall stage and needed more work to be finalized, correct?
So yes, it was in white, so we made reparation works and we wanted to repair it as fast as possible. The construction materials were purchased step by step. It was not all bought in one time. So we bought some things. We were actually trying to identify discounts for construction materials just to save some money. And I want to explain that the apartment was at the last floor, purchased at the last floor, and the policy of the real estate company is that the last floor is the cheapest. We already had the experience with the first two flats. We knew that in the Republic of Moldova you cannot transport construction materials with the elevator, and oftentimes the elevator starts to work quite late in order for the people that are refurbishing their repairing their rooms to not to use it and not to destroy it. And we were purchasing step by step construction materials, and they were brought on the rooftop. With a crane, it was actually placed on top of the building, and step by step we would bring it into our flat. So it was a part of the material was bought in one period of time, then later we bought some other materials, because we discussed with the administrator of the real estate company, and they told us that when all the construction materials of the company itself are going to be taken away, that's when we can start our works inside. And we actually knew that we will not be able to use this, to do this on our own. We used the, including the materials and the equipments of the real estate company. And when we were allowed to start the reparation work inside, that's when we started it. So it was not all done in the same time.
Or did you already start with those finalizations works before it was officially finalized, or did you only start it when it was finalized?
Da.
Yes, when it was before given into exploitation. This is a practice here. I cannot tell you exactly, but the construction companies, to my knowledge, they are encouraging people to make inside the reparation in their flats as fast as possible. This is related also to the date of giving the building into exploitation. So, because, for example, if there are, let's say, 50 apartments, and people are doing step by step this reparation works, it can last forever. And we somehow agreed to be one of the first people who started reparation work, and we were one of the first who started to actually live there. I don't live, and not all of the people who bought apartments there live there. Many of them are abroad and they are renting the place. But we were one of the firsts.
And when exactly did you start living there in that apartment? You bought it in November 2016, so was that somewhere in 2017?
Nu pot să spun exact.
I don't remember exactly when we moved.
Trebuie să verific. Nu
I have to verify.
În orice caz,
At least from what I remember, the building was not yet fully given into exploitation. But we had the electricity, running water, but I cannot give you a concrete date when we moved there. But definitely we moved before it was officially given into exploitation. Because when we started to live there, many other people also moved in there. And when we moved there, the elevator was not even working yet. So the first period of time with a small kid, we would go on stairs because the elevator was not working, as I said. And it was connected when the building was officially given into exploitation. Because I remember I spoke about this with the association of those who live there.
Was it officially given in operation, the apartment building?
I don't remember.
In 2018, 2019?
ar putea fi
I think it was end of 2018, beginning of 2019. I can verify that. But this question was not in the first or second round of questions, that's why I didn't prepare to answer for this.
Money was involved in finalizing the apartment, and again, you probably don't know all the details, but what is the general figure that you used in order to finalize this apartment?
So, initially, maybe I would say it's a few tens of thousands of lei, but again, I won't be able to give you the concrete amount. So a few tens of leis related to the price of the construction materials.
Okay. And in that year, 2016, the taxable income of your parents amounted to just over 1 million lei, is that correct?
Da.
Yes.
Din narațiune care am
So from the narrative that I read and as you mentioned,
vreau să vă explic care
this information available for the public, I want to explain the situation. So my father was illegally dismissed from his work. My father went into trial
deci angajatorul
with the employer, his employer, in order to, because he wanted the illegal dismissal to be cancelled. And then he wanted to receive salary for absence at work. Respectively, he won in the court and in the appeal, and this amount is the salary for this absence at work. So it's an amount brought together. That's why the incomes went down and then suddenly it went up. So this was all related to his illegal dismissal from work.
And what company or what kind of work was that your father was involved in before?
tata era
So my father was,
acum poate că nu spun corect sau expres denumire, dar era
I don't know the exact name, but he was the secretary of Asito company, which is an insurance, one of the biggest insurance companies from Moldova.
chiar și am dat careva
I actually made some clarifications
mi se pare că când dădeam răspunsul
previously when I answered some questions related to ethics.
acest fapt
At least I mentioned about this in one of my answers, round of question answers. So he was the secretary of that entity. So he was kind of the main manager, and he had two people responsible for legal administration and management of real estate. And the second person was responsible for the accountant, for paying the claims in insurance, more for the economical part. But my father was responsible for the legal aspects in that company. So he was kind of the second person in the company.
Anything else to comment on in relation to this apartment?
dacă sunt întrebări de
Again, if there are questions from the members, it's maybe better for them to ask. I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly. So you said it was about a few tens of thousands lei for the reparation works. Who paid that money? The reparation work? The restoration?
eu cu soție treptat am mai
Me
chitat
and my wife, we paid step by step. Me and my wife, we paid step by step.
noi parțial
So partial, as I said, we moved into the flat and it was almost empty. We made reparation work and step by step we would gather money and we would purchase new materials. Because, you know, we still kept this idea of leaving Cahul. Somehow till today we have this idea that we want to move from Cahul to Chișinău. That's why we did not actually invest so thoroughly into that reparation, into that flat. As I mentioned before, the real estate in Cahul is quite modest compared to Chișinău. So it's quite difficult to buy and it's difficult also to sell flats there. Okay, but the reparation, because you said you moved very fast, so you were one of the first that moved there. It means that you made this in 2016, 2017. Is it correct? No, I said that it was end of 2017, 18 already we moved. So it was, I just cannot tell you exactly when. It's many years, it happened many years ago. But in 2016, it was just the building with empty walls, not even windows. And then, step by step, when the company told us that it's possible for us to start the reparations, that's when we started. Because it was impossible to do it earlier, because their construction materials for the walls and everything, they were still inside. And their equipment, and they didn't want us to get in there because, I mean, for safety reasons. Also, in order for their equipment not to disappear or to be stolen, they would not allow for other people to be there, to come there. And in this case, those that were verifying the construction, they would allow us to come only when it was almost ready. So it was end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when we started to do some reparation on our own.
Okay. Let's move to the third commercial property. So on 27 April 2017, your wife purchased a commercial space of 43.9 square meters in Cahul. The property was bought for 305,000 lei, roughly 14,500 euros. Similar commercial spaces in Cahul now in 2022 are sold for around 1,000 euros per square meter. So that would amount now to about 43,900 euros. Asked about the difference in purchase price and market value price, you declared that the sale price was established exclusively by the seller and the technical condition of the space was also taken into account. You informed the Commission that you and your wife used two sources for the financing of this purchase. Two loan agreements of 100,000 lei each, taken in the same day of purchase by you and your wife, both separately, and your family savings as a result of a family event, of the same family event, I suppose, in 2016. The two loans you took in April 2017 were fully repaid within 4 months, and you explained that the source of money for early repayment was your wife's income during that period. You confirmed that a commercial space was bought for the activity of your wife as a bailiff, but according to information available to the Commission, this property is rented out since 10th of June 2019. And since this date, 4 rental contracts have been concluded for a period of a year each and were registered with the tax authorities for the price of 4,000 lei in 2019, 8,000 lei in 2020 and 2021, and 1,000 lei in 2022. Here again, I will begin by asking some questions to establish the facts, and then we will go more into the details. On 27 April 2017, you and your wife purchased a commercial space of 43.9 square meters. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
And the purchase price of this commercial space was 305,000 lei. Is that correct?
That is true.
And was that the real price at the time, given that the market price for such commercial spaces are much higher, and certainly these days? Was that the real price at the time?
This is the price that the seller asked for and which we paid to him. I would like to provide an explanation about this price. We were somehow not thinking, after we started to invest in the end of 2016, to invest into another real estate item, but we got this offer. My wife found out about it, and she was very interested because the price was very good. We don't know the seller. Actually, from what I understood from him, the seller lives abroad permanently, but he had several offices in those premises that he was renting out, which means, well, his child abroad was supposed to get married, and they did not have enough money to cover for the celebration, for the wedding party. So he was selling it, and that price was like for a very short time, because on second or third day after that the person was leaving for abroad. So if he did not manage to sell that real estate, he would have taken a loan to cover the expenses of that event, the wedding abroad. And while the price was small, I also submitted photos to the commission. This office that he sold, initially, according to the technical design, it had windows that were going outside. It had ventilation from outside, so that, and to have natural light as well. But local public authorities issued a construction authorization for another building, and because initially when construction authorizations were issued for several real estate, someone made mistakes regarding the distances. I don't know what mistake, but I know that there was a litigation about it. And it was allowed for buildings to be joined, and then the building that was building next to it covered in a way the windows of this office, and it means that this office has only windows towards the corridor, which means only inside of the building. Its ventilation is not that good, it has no natural light, only artificial light coming from electricity sources.
What you also mean with that was the technical condition of the space?
Da,
Yes.
au fost, deci chiar pot să explic
I can explain that this office, even though the others were being rented out, this office was being used for some events when, well, a large number of people had to take place, but for a short time, because it doesn't have a good ventilation. And respectively, it wasn't possible for it to be permanently working. My wife purchased it in order to work in that office because, as I said, my wife received her license of a judicial bailiff, and her office was planned for, she was assigned to Cantemir town. She works there, has her main area and her office, but she has, as territorial competence, she has the neighboring districts, Lova, Taraclie, Vulcanești, Comrat. This is how the competence of her work is divided territorially. So, and speaking of rayons, Cahul is large, and she has many proceedings in Cahul. And for her to be able to work there, she took this office in order to be able to have citizens coming, for them not to go to Cantemir Rayon. And since we live in Cahul, she was more comfortable to receive people from Cahul Rayon, also from Taraclia, from Vulcanești rayons, districts that are further from Cantemir but closer to Cahul, to receive them in Cahul. And in this case, citizens are also having less travel expense, and it is more comfortable to my wife as well. But you said it was rented out, yes, as a bailiff. She was renting this office in order to store her archive files in her. The bailiff, similarly to a court, has the obligation to keep an archive. The files that were already enforced, which have no other actions going on until it's time for their disposal, because they may be necessary to go back to those documents, to provide some documentation from those proceedings. So the office that my wife was having in Cantemir is smaller as a surface. She rents it, and she has no place to store so many enforcement files. This office is used as an archive because it is not just a simple room, it's a room.
I would like to come up with follow-up questions, so we will probably come back to that, and if there is still something missing, then of course by the end you can always provide further details. But when we talk about the technical conditions, did you make or your wife make any repairs or adjustments to the building at that time, or was it just you kept it in the situation as it was?
It was kept as it was, because it was repaired. There was paint on the walls. It was in a good condition. It didn't need any investment. I mean, it's not like a white walls apartment.
And as we discussed, the purchase of this commercial space was paid for by two sources: two loans of 100,000 lei and part of the 30,000 euro gift from the family event of 2016. Is that correct?
We took credits. I want to explain more. You told me to be honest. I will be honest. My father did not want us to invest into another real estate because he didn't want to help out with that. So he said, you first solve the situation with the apartment and then you can buy yourself an office. But this was a very convenient offer that was right in the time. I don't think that office would have been for sale later on. So it was in that moment, it was very convenient, and we decided with the wife, we had some savings from salaries, income we had. We also took two loans, 100. So I took 100,000, she took 100,000. At that time, you could get this 100,000 without collateral. We showed proof that we have some real estate on our name, but they did not need to be evaluated, set as collateral or registered with cadastre. So you were getting this 100,000 based on certificate of salary. You were proving that you have a stable income. So we had an amount plus the two loans, 100,000 each. They covered the price. And as you mentioned, in a short time, my wife earned this money and she paid out the loans, because I also submitted you an abstract from my wife's bank turnover showing that this money was withdrawn from her account where she was getting her fees. And from on the day when she withdrew the money, the loans were paid out.
If we look at the two purchases in a short period of time, we're talking about the apartment of November 2016 and the commercial space of April 2017. We're talking about the purchase of the apartment of 36,000 euros, the commercial space of about 15,000 euros. So we're talking about 51,000 euros to be spent on those two spaces. You had the family event gift of 30,000. You had a donation of 100,000 lei by your parents, so about 5,000 euros, and two loans, of which one of them you paid back in a very short period of time. So in total, you were able to pay around 11,000 euros from the income of you and your wife at that same time. Is that correct? Do my calculations add up?
We took credits, and from the salaries we had, from the income that my wife had, we used that money to purchase this office. And the other money from the event that my father was keeping, as I mentioned before, we used that money to pay for the apartment.
Și a fost un rulaj.
So there was a turnover, and we used the money that we received in that year.
As we briefly discussed, as of June 2019, this commercial space is rented out. So your wife does not use that space anymore?
I explained that my wife is obliged to keep an archive. The archive has to be kept in certain conditions. It shouldn't be high humidity, no access for other people, and so on. The archive physically couldn't have been stored in Cantemir because my wife had to either to rent another office and pay monthly to someone else, or she could have used this office that belongs to her. But in order to make it legal, why does she keep it exactly there? Because she cannot bring the files home and keep them at home, or to keep them at the home of some relative. We need to show where this archive is kept. So my wife, to legalize this legal relationship, she registered with the tax authority the lease agreement, and she set the archive of her files in the office in Cahul. But she was working, and works actually mainly, in the office from Cantemir.
Right, that you are the owner of this commercial space and that you rent it out to your wife. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, my wife as a bailiff, as an entity, as a judicial bailiff, she rents the office from us, because the judicial bailiffs have the possibility to rent offices. There are judicial bailiffs that have several offices rented. So this was the only solution to legalize it. Why? To explain why we don't keep the archive in Cantemir but in Cahul.
And then can you explain why the price of the rent in 2019 was 4,000 lei, in 2020 and 21 8,000 lei, and now it seems to be only 1,000 lei? Is that correct?
The agreements are registered by my wife. If these amounts are mentioned there, it must be true. So it's up to her how much she registers, how much she registered on that contract. It's up to her. She registered these amounts.
It's in 2021 for 8,000 and in 2022 for just 1,000, so only 12% of the previous year?
Probably. I don't check her agreements. I don't get involved in her work as a judicial bailiff. If you would like, I can check on that and provide you some information if the Commission requests so in more detail. I will ask my wife for more details.
Any further comments on your side in relation to this property?
I did not understand. Your wife, how did she conclude? She concluded a lease agreement with herself? Who are the contract parties? Yes, with herself. And money, how money are transferred? Who pays to whom? She, as a judicial bailiff, transfers to herself this money and pays taxes on this amount. Don't you think it is a simulated agreement? I conclude a contract with myself? That's how it works. I mean, she signed a contract with herself, but she needs to make legal why she keeps the archive there and why she receives citizens there, because officially she's registered only in Cantemir. And in order to justify why she receives keeps the archive, she needed a lease agreement that would be officially registered with the authorities, and as long as taxes are paid, because so it's either she gets this amount and pays the income tax, or she pays it from as income tax from that rental payment. This is not a way of avoiding tax payment. It's just we needed to make sure that it is legal. This relationship or this fact of keeping the archived files there had to be made legal, and this was the only legal solution that was found, that was applied. But it's not a simulated agreement, because in case of simulation, but transfers are made from the account, taxes paid, contracts are registered with the tax authority. So it's not, well, this was a recommendation from someone. My wife consulted someone before making these steps, because initially could see, she was not having a contract because she did not have a large archive. It was only the beginning of her career. But over time, the number of cases, ongoing and archived cases, increased, and it was necessary to have some storage place, because bailiffs are accountable for storage of such files, and my wife tries to make sure that everything is done the right way.
Then let's move on to the last of the 5 real estate properties. So on 10 June 2021, your wife purchased a half plot of land of 0.029 hectare and half of an administrative building of 115.3 square meters in the city center of Cahul. The property was bought for 385,000 lei, so roughly 18,500 euros, and the cadastral value of it was exactly the same. Similar commercial spaces in Cahul in 2022, so 1 year later, are sold for around €1,000 per square meters. So for this space, it would be around 115,000 euros. Taking into account that she is owner for 50%, the commercial price for a commercial space of this size last year would roughly have been around 57,600 euros. Regarding the difference in purchase and market value price, you declared when we asked for that the sale price was established exclusively by the seller who wanted to sell it for a long time. You informed the Commission that 2 financial sources were used for the purchase of this commercial space. First, your family's own cash savings, and second, a 150,000 lei donation from your father. However, according to information available to the Commission in 2021, your father's income and that year was only just over 11,000 lei. According to the contractual provisions, the price was supposed to be paid in installments before 29 December 2021. According to the financial information you provided to the Commission, you confirmed that by 10 March 2022, so a few months later, you had paid all installments. As of 24 December 2021, 32.4 square meters of this administrative building is rented out for the price of 6,400 lei. Here again, I will ask a few questions to establish the facts, and then we will go further into the details. Please have a look at the photo, I think, that we gave to you, and confirm whether this is indeed the administrative building. Is that correct?
Da, eu confirm.
Yes, I confirm.
Partea stângă.
It's the left side.
Okay. And on 10 June 2021, your wife purchased 50% of the ownership of this commercial space of 115.3 square meters in Cahul. That is correct?
Da, este corect.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. The purchase price of this commercial space was 385,658 lei. Is that correct?
Da, este corect.
Correct.
Okay. And is that the real price given the market price for such commercial spaces these days? It seems to be much lower.
Da, este prețul real care
It is the true
vânzătorul
price that the seller asked for, and we accepted it, and it was actually paid.
Pot să explic?
I can explain.
Când au venit în runda a doua de întrebări,
When round of questions came with a request to explain the difference,
am explicat că cel mai
I explained that
corect ar fi
the most correct would be not for me to explain as a buyer, but for the seller to explain why he sold the good at this price. And I provided the commission with the seller's telephone number so that he could be contacted and asked, because the law provides for such for the possibility for him to be heard as well. But thinking that such a question may arise during the public hearing, I also asked him personally once more to explain me why that price was lower. First of all, he explained that this property was built by him. He did not buy it from someone. There are two co-owners. They together built it for a long time ago, and that property was actually, they became owners of that property by creating it. And over the last time, this property, he was not renting it out. This can be checked with the state tax service, because you can see if there were any contracts registered in this respect, but he said none were there. But he had to incur expenses at winter time, heating, cleaning, he had to pay for utilities. The real estate was having some security, so which also had to be paid. And this property was making him incur losses. He only had expenses coming out of it, and he tried to sell it. Of course, initially he tried to sell at a higher price, but over time, when he saw that no one buys it, he set the price with it. Personally, I was not there when the contract was signed or negotiated. He talked to my wife. He said that he's selling, no one was buying, is she interesting to buy? And they got to an agreement, so I did not take part in any discussion about the price. This is what the seller told me. And I am convinced that if the Commission contacts and invites him, he will not refuse to give explanation. Maybe he could provide you more thorough, more detailed explanations.
Needed or adjustments to the building when it was sold to you or to your wife?
To make it clear, the with mentioned there is larger, but this area includes one auxiliary room where certain goods are stored, like cleaning things, the bathroom or restroom, the hallways are quite large, staircases and the surface under them, area under them. My wife administers only 3 offices there. The largest is, I think, around 20 square meters. Out of these 3 offices, which indeed she rented them all out, 2 are taken by one individual that promotes certain products in those offices, and the last one, well, not for the reason they asked for the walls to be painted in green, because that's the color of the product that he sells, so this is promoted through green color. I don't want to say the name, not to make any advertising for the product. And the second tenant is an NGO, quite known, which promotes human rights. So there are 3 offices, 2 for an individual and 1 is taken by an NGO.
You have only one rental contract. Is there something missing here?
Nu știu, îs două contracte.
There are two contracts.
Unul, deci ambele precis
So,
să fie
and both of them certainly should be registered. I don't know on which date they were registered, but there are two contracts. They're both registered because this, the individual, when they registered, I am sure that person registered it with the tax authority because my wife pays income tax on that. And for the NGO, the law is such that they pays taxes are withheld at the source of payment, which means the NGO, before sending us the monthly payment for the lease, first pays the tax amount, and what is left is transferred to us. So I think he meant that the tax for the lease is withheld and they get only the amount of tax. So we have 3 rooms, 2 are leased by an individual, 1 by an NGO.
And you paid for the commercial space by 2 sources, as you informed us, your family's cash savings and the donation of your father of 150,000 lei. Is that correct?
Este adevărat.
Correct.
But the income of your father in 2021 was only just over 11,000 lei. Is that correct?
Aici tot doresc să vin cu o precizare.
Well, I would like to give a clarification here.
Dacă este 11.000 de lei, nu sunt.
So,
Dacă comisia a identificat
well,
serviciul.
I don't know about 11,000 lei, but if a commission found it from the tax authority, I have no objection.
Deci este sumă veridică.
I believe that the amount is accurate. I just want to explain the following thing. My parents at that age were retired already.
Deci
They both had the pension. I cannot say the precise amount, but they had a pension that was higher than my salary. Each of them had a pension that was higher than my salaries. So their pension as retirees, they had high pension that my salary as an interim president of a court. So from what I know, they were having several tens of thousands lei pension per month. In the request of September, when I saw the Commission to help me, for me to be able to provide more detailed explanations about the income of the family, because, well, my parents are family members for me, I asked to request from the National Social Insurance House the amount of their pension, and then this question would be solved. I made a request to the National House of Social Insurance, and I was told that I need to provide proof that I inherited. And I want to mention, my father died in August 2021. His will, only my mother was the one who inherited it. My mother accepted the succession. Respectively, my mother then died in September 2022. And it's 3 of us who inherited. My mother did not have a will. So it's 3 of us who inherited her. My sister is abroad, but the notary explained for him to give us certificates so that we can have a legal certificate. All of us, 3 of us, need to be present simultaneously at that notary's office. Because of this military conflict and economic situation, my sister is working and has a child who is in education abroad. She currently cannot come to Moldova, and I don't have any confirmation document. That's why I asked the Commission to check on that. But from what I know, both my parents had a pension of over 20,000 monthly pension. And this was a monthly amount, and my parents, because of the diseases that they suffered, they could not move a lot. They needed care. They were staying at home, and they did not have big expenses to spend the money. So all this money they were getting as a pension after they were paying what was necessary, food, utilities and so on. The remainder of the money was saved. How the money was divided entirely, I don't know, but I am sure that if the Commission checks the pension of my parents, what was the amount, this question will be solved. I tried to obtain it, but I was refused. They didn't provide me.
Yeah, thank you. Just to sort of trying to wrap up a bit our discussions about the different real estates and the funding, if we try to get an overview, then your parents have been donating to you and your wife and your family on a regular basis. As we discussed, the apartment in 2007, which was over 32,000 euros. As you mentioned, your parents took the commitment to pay for this apartment. We discussed the apartment in 2010 of 25,000 euros, and as you just confirmed, at least over 80–90% of that price, so at least over 20,000 euros was paid for by your parents. You had a donation in 2016 of your parents of 100,000 lei, a donation in 2021 of 150,000 lei, the family event in 2016, to which your parents, of course, also contributed. If we try to make a calculation of that, then we see that probably around 70,000 euros has been donated by your parents, and maybe even somewhere between 50 to 100,000 euros. Do you follow my calculations here?
Yes.
Okay. And then you already mentioned it yourself, you have also two siblings, that is correct?
Yes, a brother and a sister that are older than me.
Yeah, okay. And so have your parents in all those years been donating the same or similar amounts of monies to your two siblings?
I don't know exactly how much they were given and what exactly my parents gave to them. I cannot answer to that. I don't have account. My sister is not a public servant and she never made a declaration, but I am sure that to my brother and to my sister, they also helped. My parents helped them also. And they helped also the grandchildren. So all the children and grandchildren were supported by parents during their life. When I made the request from September that I keep talking about, when I asked the Commission to help me bring more correct arguments in order for the Commission also to know all the circumstances, I asked also to make a research for a longer period of time than the one foreseen by the law, for more than 15 years. Indeed, my brother and sister are older than me, and when I was a kid, I did not receive so much. So at that time, they have donated to my brother and sister some money. Lately, indeed, they focused more on me. They donated more to me. I was the smallest kid. This was the decision of my parents. That's all I can say. So maybe my parents thought that the older brother and sister they are on their own and they received at a certain period of time a certain amount of money, and now they decided to support me, to focus on me. That's my explanation.
Okay. According to the information that the Commission has available, your parents had over the years 2007 to 2022 a total net income of nearly 2.5 million lei, that is translated into roughly 120,000 euros. So how can you explain that your parents were able, from out of 120,000 euros, to donate you roughly between 50 to 100,000, probably close to 70, 75, donate also your siblings, and out of a total of 120,000 euros? Can you explain?
Yes, so I would like to explain from the amount that you have indicated, the most probable is that you base on the what was reported from the state tax authority. So it's reported by the fiscal state. But in the same time, the Commission was able to identify some amounts that were not officially stated at the state tax authority. And these amounts, they did not include also the pension. For the national experts, I think it's not news. And I'm explaining now mainly to you, to the international experts. Last year, the pension for the majority of the citizens of the Republic of Moldova was increased to 2,000 lei. But my parents, they were receiving 10 times more, 20,000 lei per month. So they had enough income, and the pension in the Republic of Moldova is established based on the incomes that you have. And the coefficient is depending on the function that you had. So my parents, they had a higher pension that was established by our national authority. Then it means that they had during their life high incomes. And the amounts that unfortunately, I don't know the reason why they were not reported to the state tax authorities. I believe they might have had higher incomes than those reported to the state tax authority. Just a clarification. So your parents had pension more than 20,000 lei each, or separate, each of them? Okay, so since what year, from what year they were receiving such a high pension? I cannot tell you for sure, but I know my father, approximately from 50 years old, he started to receive it, and I think it's approximately 2007. Yes, but the pension you are talking about are for the last, yes, it's for the last period of time, because this information was requested. And if you verify, I made a request to the Commission in September for the first round of questions when you asked me about the financial income for my parents for the purchase of that flat. I immediately made a request because, as I explained, my mom was very sick. She was only frequenting medical institutions. I was not able to, at that time, and morally also, I was not able to take her and bring her to the state authorities and make some declarations there. So the questions came to me in August, and my mom died in September. So you understand in what state my mom was. She was a cancer patient. So I asked to the Commission to provide some data, and in the narrative report that I read, that information was not there. But I believe that the Commission should request that I received a refusal because I couldn't prove that I received that inheritance. But I am not a legal inheritance document. And I think the Commission in that sense can understand better the circumstances. I know that my mom had a smaller pension at some point, but then it increased. But again, I'm not aware of the amounts and when that increase happened.
Okay, but when we speak about all these donations, then why the father made the inheritance document on the mother, not on your name, if you have such good relations? Okay, I can explain. So after my mom died, when we went to the notary, we asked, first of all, we asked if there is an inheritance, if there is a will. And then we found out that they did not know, when they created that will, they didn't know who is going to be the first to die, of course, and they made the will on each other. So my father made it for my mom, and my mom made it for my father. So this was their way of making some, like having an insurance for the future.
And when exactly, again, did you say that your parents started to receiving a pension?
I know that the judges start to receive the pension at 50 years old, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Matiana. Yes, from in 2005, this means my parents started the procedure for receiving the first pension. For my mom, I think a little bit later, because she, my father was a judge at the Supreme Court, and he had 12 years and a half of activity, and according to the law, his pension was established based on that. My mom received it a little bit later, and my mom is younger. So yes, my father started to receive it first. My mom was 2 years younger than my father, and she started to receive it a little bit later. So initially their pension was lower, but then according to the legislation they started to receive more. From what I know, the amounts are more than 20,000 lei, but I don't know exactly the amount. I would be also interested if the National House of Insurance gives you that information.
Further questions from this side, then I would like to pass on to Tatiana. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to refer to a few facts that were established by the Commission about your relations with two lawyers in 2021. So together with your wife, you have purchased one half of a land plot and one half of an administrative building in the city center of Cahul under the contract from June 2021. The property was bought from Kyriakov Grigori, attorney working in Cahul District since 2001. The other half of administrative building bought in 2021 belongs to Iurașcu, another lawyer working in Cahul since 2001. Between 2015-22, you examined judicial cases where attorney Kyriakov participated as counselor. In 2021-2022, after you purchased the commercial property, you issued at least 7 decisions in the cases with participation of Kyriakov Grigori as attorney. The majority of the cases you issued decision on refer to the recognitions of facts that have legal value, so all the requests submitted in these cases were admitted by you. In the written communication with the Commission, you explained that you did not think there was a need for recusal in relation to Kyriakov Grigori, and you referred to the provisions of on the Civil and Criminal Code in the part of grounds for the judge's recusal. So, in connection with this, I will ask a few questions. So, you have purchased this property from Kyriakov Grigori, an attorney that works in Cahul District, is this correct? Yes, it is correct. The other half of this land plot building is in property of the attorney Iurașcu, Mr. Iurașcu. Is it right? Yes. Please explain what kind of relation do you have with these two attorneys, Mr. Kyriakov and Mr. Iurașcu. I have explained also this within the questions that were given in written form to me. I will not repeat.
I can just say that with Kyriakov Grigory and Iurashko Alexandru, I don't have any relations. We are not friends. We are not any kind of relatives or, according to Moldovan traditions, any connections. We don't visit each other on holidays. Our children don't have connection. We are not having any holidays together inside the country or outside the country. We never had together any parties or, I don't know, fishing or barbecue together. We never attended joint events in restaurants or have any kind of leisure time together. We have none of the connections with them. The only connection that we have with Mr. Iurashko Alexandru is that his smaller kid and my big older kid are in the same class in Cahul municipality. That's the only connection besides everything that you asked me about. We do not contact in any other circumstances. We have this connection in professional, so lawyer, judge, executor. So the fact that this lawyer may appear before you as judge, have had an impact on the price that you had to pay? No, I had explained already how Mr. Kyriakov reached that amount. I actually can explain you even more. According to the legislation, if there are two co-owners, the first, so the preferential option is assigned to the second owner, and Mr. Kyriakov was actually the one dealing with this purchase. And it's no favorizing. There is no favorization of price in that context. The notary actually had to ask the second co-owner if he agrees to sell this real estate at this price, or you want to use the preferential price. And from what I know, at least my wife explained to me that Mr. Iurashko do not want to buy this at this price. And from what I know, he actually wants to sell his part of the building. Because I remember it was a time they both wanted to sell it as a whole building, but they couldn't find a buyer. And okay, Mr. Bușuleac, we are speaking about the ethical aspect, not the financial aspect. Do you believe it's an ethical approach to buy a building half with a lawyer? You as a judge, I'm asking you as a judge. I believe that we, in our seller-buyers relationship, we were just citizens of the country. We were not lawyer and judge. Yes, we have this profession. And it was the initiative of my wife to purchase this. And I believe personally that I didn't go against the ethical code. Please confirm that after the purchase of building from lawyer Kyriakov in June 2021, you examined files with the participation of this attorney. Yes, I did. I did examine, and yesterday I saw the file that was sent to me from the Secretariat, and the name of the files were stipulated there. How many files? I cannot tell you exactly. Let me check. So the Commission actually has presented to me an information about that. Let me just check it. I see also from 2019, 2020, so 7 cases, 7 or 8 cases, 7 or more. Only this? According to this list, I cannot answer for sure. What kind of files were those? So according to the list presented by the Commission, most of them are related to it was civil cases, yes? Yes, civil cases. Yes, it was about adoption. So, I want to mention about one of the cases that this is according to the legislation, and this is again more for international experts, because if you allow me, just for you to have clarity about these files, because I'm sure that the national experts know very well the law in the Republic of Moldova. So, in our country, the legislation, the previous legislation was foreseeing that after a person dies, in 6 months, the followers will go to the notary and see what is the situation. And you know that many people from the Republic of Moldova, they are abroad and they don't know so much the legislation. And now, in order to have that succession document, and this is usually a relationship between husband, wife, parents, children, they need a judge's decision about the acceptance of the succession. And this is a document that initiates the procedure. And usually one of the inheritant comes, usually it's children, and they make that declaration. And these were just civil cases without any litigations. Yes, but you said something about adoption, and the decision was in favor of Kyriakov's client. Yes, it was a decision of adoption, and I would like to say that I would like to mention in this case, I cannot give you details, but it's not about an adoption. No, my question is just of a family was adopting a child of some of his relatives. Was there a recusal? No. Okay, so why you did not abstain from the case where Kyriakov was involved? I did not consider this to be the case, to abstain from that. I would like to give an example in this sense and to explain. All the judges are, first of all, people, okay? We are members of this society. And a judge, as a citizen, we interact with other people. And we all have bank accounts. We all receive salaries on those accounts from the Minister of Finance. None of the judges will abstain from a case through which, for example, he has to be involved in a case related to a credit, a bank credit, if he is, for example, a client of the same bank. I mean, it's just an example. We all have mobile phones, and we all have service providers, and we cannot just abstain from a cause just because it represents the same mobile company. I mean, it's somehow, you know, it's life. And as a last example, I can give you, for example, we go to a shop and we purchase something, and then people from whom we purchase some goods, they can be our clients in a file. And I don't think we should always think about abstaining. For example, if I buy some clothes from someone and then he is involved in a case, yes, we have to be impartial. I understand that. And if we are impartial and we are objective in examining a file, I think things are okay, everything is okay. But when we send the price and then we received the good, that's where our relationship ends. And do you believe that, do you consider that your participation in examining these cases as a potential conflict of interest? I personally don't see it that way. Okay, is there anything you'd like to add or clarify in relation to this subject? If there is another question, yes. If no, no.
Back to this particular issue, because again, as we discussed it previously, you bought this property, or your wife bought this property for about 1/3 of the commercial price. And then in the very same period before and after the purchase, you have that same council that you bought for about 35% of the market price. You have that same counsel in your case, and you do not recuse yourself. That's a bit different than buying a mobile phone or buying a jeans in a shop. This is a much bigger issue. Do you think that that is still, that it wouldn't require a recusal if you have just bought that apartment against that lower price?
So, if I would have been 100% convinced that I have to recuse, I would have recused. But in that situation, I believed that there is no problem, and I would anyway be impartial in examining that file. And none of the decisions were cancelled, and the files were examined exactly like any other cause or any other file. So I don't know how to explain, because it was not about any favors. It was just a simple case. How I examined the cases before that purchase, I would examine, and I was examining also after the purchase. And all the causes were, well, all the files were replaced just randomly. So I didn't actually ask for that case. And if you look at the materials here, other participants were also involved in the process, not only Mr. Kyriakov. And none of the parties was against my actions. So, respectively, the files were examined exactly as in the case if I would not have been involved in that purchase. We had also files when Mr. Kyriakov was changed.
How did you pay the council? Was that in cash for the purchase of this commercial space, or has there been any bank transactions?
It was paid cash, because the money was received from my father cash, and we just paid cash. I believe that he has some account, Mr. Kyriakov, but I don't know that information. He asked for cash, and we agreed to pay in cash because we had cash. It was the condition of the person, the seller. About the conflict of interest. Okay, let's not call it conflict of interest, but a lack of impartiality. Did you think about asking the opinion of the Ethics Commission from the Supreme Court of Magistrates, because that's their role? And if you had any experience with that, or if you made any request to them ever? Actually, I never asked from that commission an opinion, and in this case, I also did not. Okay, we will continue on another subject, the undeclared right in a judge's, the habitation in a judge's apartment. So, on October 2019, you and your wife registered your residency in Cahul. You have explained that you have done this to be able to vote at the local elections in Cahul. Furthermore, you confirmed that you and your family have started living in this apartment apartment before the registration. You did not specify what period you lived in this apartment. The apartment you purchased in Cahul was put into operation in August 2018. In your written answer, you declared that before moving to this apartment in Cahul, you lived in another one, also in Cahul, that belongs, and you rented from Mr. Sergiu Suvac. From the information available to Commission, Sergiu Suvac is a judge at Chișinău Court. You did not declare in your annual declaration in 2012-2021 any right of possession regarding this rented apartment. According to Article 4 from the law number 133, the subject shall declare movable and immovable assets, including unfinished property owned by usufruct rights, the right of use, dwellings, superficies by the subject of the declaration. And I would like to offer some questions. First of all, please confirm that in October 2019, you and your wife have registered your home residency visa in the apartment you purchased in November 2016 in Cahul. Is that right? Yes, indeed, we have registered that, and as you mentioned, it was right before the elections, and since we moved to Cahul municipality, I have participated in local elections because I was constantly in service, and I didn't participate before because I didn't have residency there.
To exercise our voting rights, so therefore we registered our residence in that apartment. Please confirm that before 15 October 2019, your and wife's residency visas were in Chișinău, right? Yes, that's true. I can clarify. Please confirm that before moving to this apartment in Cahul, you lived in another apartment that you were renting in Cahul. Yes, we were living in an apartment, and you mentioned the name of Sergiu Suvac. Indeed, the owner of the apartment was Mr. Sergiu Suvac, but he's not a judge. I know the judge, I know him as a colleague, but it's not this Sergiu Suvac, it's a person that is older, closer to my father's age, is a good acquaintance of my father's, and he was from Cahul. Then he moved to live and work in Chișinău municipality, and at that time he did some good repairs in this apartment, and he did not want to rent it out, not to damage the furniture and everything there. And then, from discussions with my father, he found out that I was appointed to be judge in Cahul. He offered me to live for some time there with the condition to keep everything in good order and pay the utilities and real estate tax. How long did you live there? From what year to what year? From the moment I moved to Cahul. What year? 2011. Until we moved into our apartment. And that is, I don't remember. When we moved into our apartment, 2018 or 19? 17, 18, 19, I don't remember. How many rooms does that apartment have? The one that you were leasing? Actually, there are 2 bedrooms, a living room and a kitchen. And what relationship do you have with the owner? You said that your father knew him. Yes, my father was a very good friend with Mr. Suvac. They were in a very good relationship. They knew each other in the context of their age, so I did not have a lot of connection with Mr. Suvac, but he was coming from time to time, checking that everything would be right in the apartment, but otherwise I did not have a lot of contact. Last time I saw him during my father's funeral. Did you pay any rent? No, I did not pay. I don't know for my father to have been paying. What did you pay for? Utilities only? Utilities. I took care of the apartment.
ca să nu fie lăsat
for it not to be just left.
până în prezent.
Even until now, I know that he's still working. When I met him last year in August during my father's funeral, he said that he still works in Chișinău municipality.
Din partea mea a fost doar faptul că noi trebuie să
On my part was only paying for utilities, keep the property,
așa stare care era.
preserve a condition of a property, not damage it, and pay for real estate tax. Why didn't you declare the right of habitation? Indeed, I did not declare. What was the reason? It's my omission. I admitted it in writing as well. It was my mission. I mentioned in the declaration it is a domicile, but I didn't mention the right of habitation. Indeed, this is an omission of mine. I admit this fact. Would you like to add anything, clarify anything with respect to this? I don't know. Maybe there are any questions from the Commission members. I'm ready to answer, if any. Eu mă uit să văd dacă colegii mai au întrebări. Și scuze, dumneavoastră, nu are microfonul pornit. Microphone, please. I didn't hear almost anything.
Sorry,
could you
I did
repeat
not
it?
put on the microphone, my mistake. I would like to give you now the opportunity to make a brief closing comment to the Commission. Please go ahead.
Vă mulțumesc pentru această
Thank you
audiere.
for this hearing.
Vreau să fiu sincer,
I want to be honest.
Audierile publice.
I actually watched the public hearings of the colleagues that have already taken place, and I want to say that you have made a titanic effort into all these verifications. Indeed, you examined an enormous amount of documentation. You carried out an analysis. From what I've seen in your analysis, from your questions, pardon. This was a great analysis, and thank you, because the main mission is to raise public's trust into the justice of Moldova. So I'm grateful to the Commission. I'm grateful to the international experts for accepting to join it. I understand the situation is difficult. We are bordering a war. Missiles have been flying over the Moldovan territory. Some leftovers of missiles are here. I understand that might cause some discomfort to you while having to be in Moldova during the time, but you keep working. And for the national members, I understand that you have a mission that's not so easy. You know that everyone that was informed in the justice reform were always criticized, and you may be criticized as well in the future. But because this evaluation, this assessment regards me, I just want to say that I found an omission in my behavior. My parents probably as well. I have a habit, maybe it's good or maybe it's bad. I don't keep documents that have no legal effect anymore. And as you noticed, I did not keep any loan agreements that I signed. I didn't keep any rental agreements or proof of paying tax, because I was thinking that all of them are registered and they can be, information can be released on request. But for the future, you know, we learn from our mistakes. So in the future, I will start to collect all of that. And if we have such controls in the future, we will have confirmation. Indeed, I am sorry that I could not submit all the documentation that was requested for the reasons that I explained today and also explained in writing. I would like to explain explain that I applied to take part in this assessment only after I read the law and I saw what the conditions would be. And I'd like to explain to the international experts, there have been several rounds of applications to run for this position, and I applied only after the law was passed establishing your commission. Therefore, I trust this commission. And I would like to finish this hearing on a positive tone. The winter holidays are soon, Christmas, New Year's coming, so I'd like to wish you all happy holidays because we will not meet in the nearest future. So, holidays greetings, and I wish that the new year brings you a lot of peace, calmness, and welfare. Thank you.
Very much for that. I think we've come to the end of the hearing. I thank the candidate, Mr. Bușuleac, for your comments and answers to our questions. The Commission, as you know, will now withdraw for deliberations, and as much as possible, the Commission will strive at delivering a decision within a month after the date of that hearing. So hereby, this hearing is closed. Thank you very much again.